Welcome to the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast with Nick and Amy. And today's episode, we're going to talk about what should wives really expect from a good husband. And of course, we've got the poll answers that Amy has. We're hearing from a lot of the wives. And I think going into marriage or into a relationship, it's pretty normal to have expectations, right? Like you expected me that I would have a six-pack the whole time we're married.
That's funny.
I totally destroyed your expectations on that.
Did not expect
You expected that I would have just a thicket our whole marriage. Expectations were... But joking aside, I think it's realistic that we kind of have expectations of what marriage is going to be like, what our spouse is going to be like. But today, again, we're talking about the husbands. What do wives expect from a good husband? And a good husband's going to look different for every wife, right?
I think we need to start out by saying the question, or asking the question, I guess, is it okay to go into your marriage with expectations? Because I remember talking with some therapist friends or family and them saying, oh, you should never go into marriage with an expectation. That's not healthy. There shouldn't be expectations. And then so many people are like, absolutely, you should go in with expectations. We all do. We all expect things out of our spouses, right? Like, that's why we go into marriage, is to expect certain things. So I think this is going to look different to everybody. These are just some of our personal opinions on expectations. But yeah, like, I absolutely expect my husband to be loyal. I expect my husband to be a hardworking man, as he should expect of me too. It should go both ways, right? So I think there are probably healthy expectations and then unhealthy expectations, right?
Yeah.
So our question for our audience that we asked was, wives, do you often expect too much from your husband? We asked a couple thousand wives this question. And the answer actually shocked me, because I thought most women would be like, not honest about it and be like, no, I don't expect too much. But 66% said, yes, I actually expect too much from my husband.
That is high. Holy smokes,
yeah,
that is high.
They admitted that. Wives admitted that they expected too much from their husbands. Like,
wow.
That's pretty humble to say, yeah, I do. I do that. Yeah. And I think that's pretty awesome that they, like, at least admitted it.
Yeah, I do too.
It's sad, because I think that can happen.
What do you think, if we would ask the question and reversed it, what do you think the husbands would have said? I mean, I'm just posing a question, right?
I don't know. I think that we're going to ask that for our next podcast, and we'll find out the answers. But just out of personal opinion, I would probably say that they don't expect too much out of their wives, but the wives probably feel opposite of that.
Yeah.
I bet the wives would say, he expects too much out of me, but the husbands wouldn't. I don't know.
Husband's I don't need much. I just need some loving, some food, and to be appreciated, right?
But I think women, it's just a disconnect with communication, obviously. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But
No, we talk about this all the time. I mean, when Amy and I got married, she was all over me. I mean, I was like, holy smokes, like, she's got a
I think that's normal for falling in love.
So my expectations were, we were going to be rolling around every night of the week.
After we got married?
Yeah. Yeah, and, well...
No, you didn't.
Well,
he's joking.
We didn't roll around until we got married. But the first year or so of our marriage, before having kids... we were having some fun.
It actually hasn't changed that much, but
that's true. That's true. Let me edit that.
We then added. Let's see, a question. We asked wives what should be expected from a quote good husband. Okay, so here are some answers, and like we said, these are going to look different to everyone because everyone has totally different expectations in marriage.
And then you can leave in the comments below or message us as to what you think.
Right. Like, do you have these same expectations? Do you have different ones? Do you not have them? Do you not believe that husbands or that wives and husbands should have expectations? One lady said love, loyalty, and acceptance. That's a great one. Like, I feel like most couples have that for both people.
Yeah, that's good.
Husband here, he answered, I'm not really sure of a good answer to this. I'll tune in later. I'm asking the wives. Loving his wife like the Christ loved the church, to be emotionally connected and support their wife. Love is obvious, respect and support. Wanting true intimacy, not just sex. Integrity, loyalty, leadership, a man of God. Trust, honesty, support, kindness, compassion. Do you want me to keep going?
I think
that sometimes I need him to just listen and not try to fix the problem that I'm having. That he would bring his troubles to me before he takes them to a friend. These are just things that, like, I don't know if they're expectations, but probably more or less, like, things I wish that my husband
Well, and I think rather than saying, are expectations good or are they bad, I think it's better to say, what are some realistic expectations and unrealistic expectations, right? Like,
or healthy,
yeah. Like an unrealistic expectation, to think that, you're going to be making love 7 nights a week with kids, that's just not going to happen, right? And that's not fair to your spouse, right?
But to ask for faithfulness, both physically, emotionally, and to be 100% loyal, absolutely healthy expectation in marriage, right? Absolutely, yeah. So a couple more is that security, feeling secure in his love for me, that he's there for all good days and bads. I mean, I think I guess you go back to promises or vows you made when you got married. Like, you make promises to each other. So you kind of go into that marriage expecting those promises or those vows to be kept.
Yeah.
I think that's a healthy expectation, right? And that's where a lot of couples struggle, is they make these promises to each other, and then those promises, like after kids or stress or trials or whatever life throws at you, these promises start to sometimes dwindle or go away completely, or at least get less prioritized, or I
think it's important too for couples to periodically talk about like what's going on in the marriage, what the expectations are, what they should expect, between a couple.
Right.
Like you said, the expectations, realistic ones should be, you treat each other kindly. You communicate well. You involve each other in finances. I mean, obviously there's certain things that just should be common sense as to what a realistic expectation is. And there's going to be other things that are unrealistic. And I think it's so important for couples to have that conversation and talk about that, because your expectations might change based upon where you're at in life, right? Like I totally feel like our expectations of each other have probably changed based upon, versus when we first got married, right? And I think that's okay.
Because life situations change things, yes. Yeah.
For sure.
Right, like, so when we first got married, we were both working, so expectations, like, at home look different to when I chose to be a stay-at-home mom for a few years, and then I went back to working full-time. So, like, the stages of life, I feel like, changes expectations. So now that we're both working full-time, there's expectations around, well, if the house and the parenting is both of our duties, because that's both of our jobs, because we're equally working outside of the home or whatever. Like, those kind of things are going to change during the seasons of life, and so expectations and needs are going to change, right?
And I think, too, if you go into something having all these expectations, you're going to be very disappointed a lot of the time, right?
Right.
And again, getting back into the unrealistic expectations, you go into it, you're disappointed, and instead of talking about it or saying something, you just, you become bitter and frustrated.
Right.
And your spouse doesn't even know that you're feeling that way because of, you're just feeling those unrealistic expectations. So again, coming back to it, it's so important to sit down, talk together, and say, based upon where we're at, like what's realistic to be expected of each other, and maybe what are some unrealistic expectations that maybe we're setting for each other. Because I do think that happens all the time, right? Like,
agreed.
And a lot of women just assume my husband should know what I need or how I feel. Those are completely unrealistic expectations. Your husband doesn't know how you feel or what you need, and sometimes you just need to tell him and say, you know what, sweetie, I need this. I need you to do this, or here's what I'm dealing with.
So unrealistic expectation number 1 is your husband cannot read your mind.
Contrary to what
doesn't happen, contrary to what we sometimes think should happen. Like you said, like that's not really fair in a marriage to expect something like that.
I totally can't read your mind.
I know.
I have no idea what's going on.
I can read his mind, but
that's true.
It's usually on just a few different things.
Oh, we were showering the other night, and Amy's like, I know exactly what you're thinking. I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Let's hear it. Let's see if you can read my mind. She's like, boom, boom on everything, and I'm like,
what?
All right, that was freaky. Crap. Did you just call a psychic before we got in the shower, or what's going on? But I think sometimes she knows me better than I know myself.
Well, thanks.
But
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, that's a great thing. That's
Okay.
a great thing.
Okay.
On the other hand, I'm just like, babe, tell me what you need. I can't read your mind. Just tell me what you need.
Do you think women's minds are more complicated? Or we just have too many tabs? Is it not complicated? Like, do we just have too many tabs open?
Maybe that's a good way.
Is that what, okay.
You have so many
I know I've already
tabs
said
open.
this before. This is kind of a joke, but like my computer, and I really like feel like this analogy works with mine and Nick's brain. And I don't know if in your marriage it works like this, but it bothers me when I go next to him and he's on his computer and I'm like, you have one tab open. Like you would save so much time if you had this open, this open, this open, and this open.
Because I can focus on one thing at a time.
You could be switching back and forth instead of having to open up the browser, add another tab, and my mind, like I'm working with Photoshop. I'm a graphic designer. I have this open, I have this open, then I have this open, and I have the internet open, and I have 10 tabs open on my internet because I'm going back and forth to different websites. And I'm like, I feel like I accomplished so much. But the thing is that, and sometimes I think about that, like with our brain. I'm like, do my tabs are just always all open and you just focus on one thing? But I think we're just different. And I think that he feels successful in one way and I feel there's not a right or wrong. It's just, I think that we're wired differently. And I do feel like after talking to a lot of women about this exact thing, is like, yeah, maybe that's why there's a mental load. Maybe that's why we feel more stressed out or like there's more on our plate. I feel like we do. And maybe that's why we have a harder time being more present when we're like intimate, because we have so many tabs open. So that's not always a good thing. Like I like to think that I'm such a multitasker. That's such a great thing. I don't know if that's always a great thing.
Yeah.
But,
do you think does having too many expectations make it a lot more likely that you're going to have letdowns and be disappointed in your spouse?
Absolutely.
Why?
I feel like if you set the bar too high or you always change that bar, which a lot of husbands complain to us about, like, my wife has this list that has to get done before she'll be intimate, or she has, and then the bar moves and she expects this from me, and then she expects this, and in order to be intimate,
and I can never get to that.
I keep checking these boxes, but then she moves the goalpost again on me, and I'm like, see that, although I do agree that certain goalposts should be there before being intimate, like I talk about on a lot of our podcast episodes, like raising that bar or setting expectations that are too high is absolutely, can be detrimental to your marriage.
Yeah, we see that all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why I kind of pointed that out.
Yeah, so do you feel like, not necessarily like in our marriage, and I know that you would probably agree that there's been times in our marriage that maybe there's too many expectations, but do you think on the most part, just in society in general, and from like hearing from our audience, do you feel like sometimes there are too many expectations from the wives? Because we just did the podcast episode on the things that men need. It was the 5 C's, right?
Yep.
And one of those was complacency, and just like being okay, the wife being okay with like what the man brings to the table and who he is, and not trying to change him all the time and get him to be better and bigger and make more money. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's really big for men.
And I was going to say the exact same thing. Is I think society has raised the bar in a lot of ways, and I'm not saying that's always bad.
Right.
But society has raised the bar. When you get on social media, you're like, oh, they have a new house, they have a new car, their lifestyle's perfect. All of a sudden, your brain's getting wired to like, we don't have enough. So then your expectations keep going up. Mm-hmm. And if I had this, then I would be happy. If I had a new house, then I'd be happy. And all of a sudden, the expectations of why don't we have this? We should have this. And until I have this, I'm not going to be happy. It absolutely raises those expectations. And I think you really just hit on it, that a man just wants his wife to be just like
appreciative,
content,
right.
Just happy. Like,
right.
Especially here, like in America, everyone pretty much lives a decent lifestyle compared to a lot of parts of the world, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even your average family is just living like a king compared to most other parts in the world. And I think, and again, I'm not saying it's bad to want to achieve things and have more successes. I mean, we all want to do that, but being realistic with the expectations and when those expectations are happening, and then recognizing, okay, what's an unrealistic expectation, right? Like, am I expecting too much of my wife or my husband? And again, just having those conversations together and saying, what's realistic for our marriage? Because what is realistic for someone else's marriage might not be realistic for your marriage. Yet we're always so quick to compare our marriage to everyone else's, like it should be equal, and it's not. We all have different upbringings, different personalities, different jobs, different circumstances, whether it's health or financial, or so many different things that we deal with in life that means our lives are going to be different. So maybe our expectations should be different than someone else's expectations.
I think what you're saying is it really does come down to balance, though, because this is my personal opinion. I do feel like there does need to be some expectations. So, like, I expect my husband to bring in money for the family. I'm not saying I'm not willing to do that too, but like, if you decided I'm just never going to work again and sit on the couch and play video games, that marriage is going to have a lot of issues, if not end up divorce, right? So, like, there are expectations too where they can be healthy. Like, I expect you to be loyal. I expect you to work and to help provide, right? Like, those kind of things. What are your thoughts, like, on that? Because I think there's a lot of men, maybe we'll just kind of turn this a little bit. There's a lot of men now that are expecting their wife to go out and work full time, but then expect her to still maintain the home and the kids, right? So, like, we have to be realistic in our expectations. Like, there has to be that healthy balance between the both of you, which takes communication, like you mentioned. Like, communicating, okay, like, how do we make these expectations? How do we make them healthy? And maybe having that conversation. What do you expect from me? Or do you feel like I expect too much for you? Or vice versa,
yeah,
you know?
For sure.
Right.
So anyways, let us know what you think. We hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. And if you need some great products to enhance the intimacy in your marriage, go check out shop.ultimateintimacy.com. We have some game-changing products that have just really not only helped transform our intimate life, but also so many others. So again, shop.ultimateintimacy.com. Email us if you have any questions on any of the products at amy@ultimateintimacy.com. We're here to help. We appreciate you listening to the podcast. And until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.